big ups to Tottenham Hotspur, who win the Europa League, qualify for the Champions League.
Champions of Europe, well done.
Win their first trophy in 17 years, their first European trophy in, I think, more than 40 years.
41 years.
41 years. How about that? And it's all down to Big Ange, who,
of course,
who always wins trophies in his second season.
Always.
He told us, and he delivered. All right, now that that's out of the way, Jules. As a neutral, this was not a good game.
No.
And I can kind of see and it kind of depressed me a little bit, because here you have two teams that, you know, obviously had a dire season. And let's face it, to any rational person, winning this doesn't change that. All it means is you get to play in the Champions League next year, which improves your prospects in the transfer market this summer, and it means you have more money. Okay, that's all it means.
Yeah, you
right?
saved a bad season, basically. That's what you did.
You got something back from it, but in terms of where these teams are, that hasn't changed at all, has it?
No, absolutely not. And we showed that in the final anyway.
And yet so why was the way they played? Why was I don't know. I thought Spurs were very conservative in this game.
Yeah.
And it's not like they took the lead straight away. The lead obviously coming only at the end of the first half. When I saw Bruno in midfield, and Mason Mount on the pitch, who I know you're a big fan of, I thought, all right, he's gonna not do something different, but this is something that obviously they've worked on. So, like, you know, they expect to have the ball a lot. Bruno's gonna spread it around. That didn't work.
For me, this one is on Amorim from start to finish. Everything that he did, everything that he tried was wrong, never worked. They never got going. Okay, they were a little bit better maybe in the second half, but just because they put a lot of balls in the box, and this time you had Maguire and but that was it. There was nothing from United, from Amorim in this game. That was so disappointing for Spurs and Ange. And credit to Ange. And I like Ange as a person. I'm not a big fan of him as a coach. And I don't think he would stay. But what I will say, though, is for someone who was so stubborn originally, who famously said, we were never going to change, we will always play the same way, high line, super attacking, this is our style, very dogmatic, certainly when he arrived. The last few weeks, especially in this competition in the Europa League, he became more pragmatic. He changed his approach for something more conservative, as you say, more defensive, you could say, certainly better structured than what we've ever seen from him in the 2 seasons that he's been here in England. And that worked. That works for a cup competition. Sure, it would not work in the league, and I don't think I'm not sure they're very good at it. It worked yesterday because it was stupid from United the way they attacked. But still credit to Ange for realizing that he had to change, and had to change a little bit his style and philosophy to make this a success in Europe.
Yeah, I wonder if Madison and Kulusevski had been available, whether we would have seen something different. I mean, in the end, if you don't have an attacking midfielder, rather than asking Pap Sarr to impersonate one, you're better off, I think, with a line of 3 in front of the back 4, I guess. But they also sat deeper, as you said. And again, maybe Richarlison being fit and available and playing quite a bit recently, maybe that was part of it. You know, letting him attack the space, letting Brennan Johnson attack the space. Amorim said something afterwards that really surprised me. And I know people are going to cut. He says, if he gets sacked, he does not want any compensation. Now, nobody pushed him on it, but, you know, the way it works is managers sign contract, 2 years, 3 years, whatever it is. If you get fired before the end of your contract, the club, in England anyway, pays up the rest of your contract. And sometimes they pay you even more because they find other reasons to. This is pretty big. This is, if I'm Jim Ratcliffe, and Jim Ratcliffe's, given the way he's been bean counting, I think about this and I say, do you really mean this? Can I hold you to this?
He says this because he knows he's not going to get sacked anyway. That's the only reason why he says this.
I think it makes it a lot easier because for him to be sacked now.
But they're not going to sack him. They've told him before the final that regardless of the result, they will keep him.
I'm not suggesting he's going to be sacked on the final. But once you're on the record saying this, I think what it means is that they could sack him in October and it would save them, I don't know, 18, 20 million,
later.
Whatever it is, depending on the unexpired time. And given the way this club has been run by Ratcliffe, where, you know, people are being laid off, you're looking at every penny. I just wonder if that's something that comes in play. Bruno Fernandes also saying, well, he's willing to leave if it helps the club, which I was not expecting him to say. I don't think he's going to leave. And we need to celebrate, though, Spurs a little bit because it's been
absolutely.
a tremendous wait. Those are very patient fans. All right, Jules, we'll go back to hammering Amorim and United.
Yeah, they deserve it.
But let's talk about Tottenham a little bit. And again, for those who don't have a sense of what Tottenham is and what they have been, there's this term Spursy, which is they're seen as a club that historic. I think this goes back to the 70s and 80s that play attractive football, but then always stumble at the last hurdle, always throw it away. And parallels drawn with Inter Milan. The difference is Inter Milan have actually won a few things since then, and this was Spurs' first trophy in 17 years. The fan base, Spurs are from North London. You have Arsenal almost next door, and yet people don't just grow into Spurs family. They choose to be Spurs fans, and for a whole generation of people, especially since Daniel Levy took whole control of the club. All they've known, essentially, is near misses and failures. Obviously, the biggest, the Champions League final. You live in that general area. Can you just talk a little bit about this? Because
I mean, it's a very good fan base. Obviously, they're very supportive of their club. It's a strong community, tight community. I think maybe the disappointments that we've just mentioned and those heartbreaks where you lose finals, whether it's Champions League final, FA Cup final, League Cup final, which they've lost since that last title in 2008 with Juan de Ramos when they won the League Cup with Jonathan Woodgate goal of all people. It's also, I think, those moments kind of put you even more together and unite you even more because everybody is obviously criticizing you or making fun of you, whatever, and you just wait for that moment where actually things are going to turn, and this is the ninth richest club in the world. This is not just a small club that happened to be very good in the past and has still a lot of fans. It's a huge club with a lot of money. Maybe the best stadium in Europe or one of the best, maybe the best training ground in Europe or again, one of the best, that should do much better than what they've done. It's between 08 and Wednesday night so between the two last trophies. I mean, teams like Swansea, Birmingham, Portsmouth, teams like that won't even just an FA Cup, but they would have been happy with an FA Cup now and again. So this is huge. I don't know if this can turn everything around and you're not Spursy anymore because you beat a terrible United team, and you are a terrible team this season overall too. I don't know if that's enough to change the whole narrative and the whole dynamic, but it might be. This might be a new dawn for this club, and that can only be a good thing for them.
Yeah, I think you make some great points there. I think the other thing is in this time period, they've tried it many different ways. Yeah. So generally, they don't pay enormous wages, but they have spent money in transfer fees. They are one of the so-called Big Six. I think legitimately in that group. Have they spent as much as Man City or United or Liverpool?
I think they're the fourth highest in net spend for the last 4 years in the Premier League.
In the last 4 years.
Yeah,
right? Well,
it's a lot of money, or 5 years. Yeah.
So they probably spent 1/10 as much as Chelsea, but that's a whole other issue. And they've generally, I was thinking back, and so they've had huge managers like Mourinho, like Conte, so they spent money on that. Like even Pochettino was there for a long time, and you may not put him in the same class as Mourinho or Conte, but he was there and was successful. The Spurs' moment for me is when Leicester won the title, and that season it was there, and it didn't work out. I was thinking, did they lose? And in terms of the size of the club, this isn't a club really that loses top players to other clubs who, obviously Harry Kane different, although Harry Kane stuck it out for 10 years. But it's not like they've had, maybe Modric going to Real Madrid.
Yeah.
That was a long time ago.
Bale to some extent maybe too.
And again, they got an enormous fee for,
absolutely.
Bale is the notable one, but again, you can't complain. You got 100 million.
I don't think absolutely.
And I'm on the record saying that was not a good deal for Real Madrid.
No.
Spurs won that one. So it is quite remarkable that you've had this level of underachievement. They haven't even really been. Again, you only had 4 places in the Champions League, but they haven't really been Champions League regulars either.
No.
In this period. So here's the thing. we're assuming that they're kind of the mirror opposite of Manchester United. Manchester United, we assume that the manager is going to stay with Amorim, and a lot of the players are going to leave, which I think they may try to move a lot of the players. I'm not sure that many players are actually going to leave.
I agree.
Spurs, the players are going to stay, and many assume that the manager will leave regardless.
Yeah.
So his words afterwards were where he talked about, winning, and this could usher in a new era, and then you want to win more. And if it is a new era, it's not going to be with him, is it?
I don't think so. I mean, he was obviously very happy, and as you said, back in September when he said, I always win in my second season, and we were just waiting to see if that was going to be true or not. It was true, great. He also said something after the game, which I completely disagree with, when he said, you look at our league form and the fact that we had 21 defeats in the league and that we are 17th, but that it doesn't matter. That doesn't mean anything, because now we've won this trophy and we're building something with me. Well, no, you're not building something because you want a cup in a cup tournament, because the league is really where we can judge you. As you said earlier, this is 38 games when we can see the good and the bad, or the average.
You play everybody twice.
Yeah, exactly. And you have lost 21 games, which is the most in Premier League history for Spurs, which is a horrendous season. And that's the reason why he might not be there next season. And because that trumps, in a way, this great trophy. Is great to win the Europa League. You're a European champion. You will always be forever. You're the first Australian to win a European Cup. This is, as a coach, this is great. But the league form is your bread and butter. Is that what you say? English people say bread and butter. And that you didn't deliver at all. And that's the reason. You can't tell me this doesn't mean anything. Let's forget about the Premier League. No, we can't forget about the Premier League season that you had. Yeah. It's not possible, because you show your limits as a coach.
And that's the best gauge of where you are growing as a team.
Absolutely.
I can make some allowances, because once you go deep, and I said this about Amorim too, once you know you're going to qualify, you're not going to qualify for Europe, and you're not going to get relegated, I'm okay with you experimenting, and then you rest players, you take your eye off the ball in the league, so you get some bad results at the end. But the reality is, I think Spurs have been between 13th and 17th place since February?
Yeah, but the end of last season they were bad too. They lost a few games.
So, yeah, I think you can judge based on that. And I think you have to come to this conclusion that they're not in a good place.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that they won this. And I got a kind of question. Is it not just do we think Spurs will move on? If you were Levy, would you be saying, Ange, thank you very much?
Yeah.
You're not going to be the first person to be fired after winning a trophy, because, I think was it Jupp Heynckes or Hiddink who was fired after winning the Champions League at Real Madrid, right? So if it's good enough for Real Madrid, it ought to be good enough for Tottenham Hotspur, right?
I mean, Carlo Ancelotti got sacked after winning a double too. So, things like that happen. From what I was told, he knows he's going.
Is it the right decision?
Personally, I think so. I'm not sure you can build with Ange Postecoglou. I mean, and we said he's changed a little bit towards the end of the season. His style and his philosophy in the Premier League, I just don't think works. So if he's ready to change, and if he's ready to be a bit more pragmatic, if he's ready to tweak a few things, then maybe, but I'm not sure he wants to do that, not at his age. I'm not sure the players are completely on board either, and I don't think they've been for a while. I think even fans, as happy as they were on Wednesday night, and that's natural, I've also lost patience with him and faith a long time ago. Because when you lose that many games in the Premier League, yes, of course, winning the Europa League is great in the end, but it doesn't erase what happened in the last 10 months or so, which was terrible. So I think he knows he's going to be gone. I think they've already spoken to other managers. I think they made plans for pre-season in the summer without really him involved. So that might all change now. There's still plenty of time, but
I think some relationships with some players have also
absolutely
really deteriorated. And I think that's pretty evident.
Yeah.
I don't know that you can't be successful playing the way he wants to play, but it's not like the idea just is a failure, but you have to be able to get buy-in and execute it effectively. And I think we've seen that he was not able to do that with this group of players. And that's on him.
Yeah,
that's what you have to. You have to do it on the training pitch.
It's too gung ho. It's just
the same aspect. If you want, of having an original idea. and it coming down to how well you implement it, applies to the other manager, Ruben Amorim.
Yeah.
Now, I said 3-4-2-1 is really difficult for a lot of these players to understand. They've never played it before, almost all of them. So you have to give them time to teach the system, to learn the system. Some players are not going to be suited for it, others will. Are they learning it? Have they learned anything? Do you see any progress just on the tactical side? Obviously, the individual execution, it's still Højlund. He still has issues. It's still this one, that one. Diallo just coming back. Have you seen this progress?
Unfortunately, I haven't. I saw little bits there and there at times because they've had still some good results. You know, I know Man City are not having a great season, but they still beat them. They took 4 points off them. They went to Arsenal in the FA Cup and won there. Okay, maybe a little bit riding their luck, but they still did. They had a good game against Liverpool as well. So there have been moments where they looked a little bit better. But overall, they've won 1 league game since March the 6th. He's never won 2 league games in a row. How is that even possible?
Yeah. You can come back and talk about Mickey van de Veens saving the ball on the line. And look,
it's a great save, but I think Højlund should have scored every single day.
Yeah. It's the pick on Højlund thing.
You're right, it's too easy.
By the way, the commentator on my feed was blaming Vicario. He was like, I don't know what. I hate it when people are not goalkeepers. Like, I don't know what Vicario was doing there. It's
Solanke more than Vicario, really.
Solanke runs into Vicario. I'm not saying Solanke did it on purpose because he wanted to. But, dude, you're up in the air. This big man runs into you. I mean, come on, man. Seriously? But anyway, Vic.
But still, great from Van de Ven, to be fair.
Vic made a great save at the end. And you
had Van de Ven. It's a save that you expected him to make, right? We love Vic, but still. The show header, I mean, he's not even that far from on his left.
I don't know. I'm trying to give United some hope because if those two things go their way, they win the game. But again, I think you have to have an analysis and say, maybe had United won this game, maybe Amorim would get more buy-in and obviously he would have more resources. Now, projecting forward, you can spin this into a positive using the Conte thing, right? Which is, oh, look, no European football. I can have 4 training sessions a week all year and I can sit them and drill them.
And that's what he needs.
That's important.
Yeah.
I don't need as big a squad anymore, but then that's also slightly problematic because you have players you want to move on, and many of these guys are going to be difficult to move on. I mean, I think obviously Eriksen, Lindelof, Evans, these guys are out of contract, but some of these other guys is going to be tough.
Yeah.
I think the only way Amorim gets out of this is on the pitch. But let me chalk this to you. Bruno saying that he's willing to leave if it helps the club.
But helps in which way? Like, what does that mean?
All right. I think what he means, well, first of all, he's not really going to leave, right? He would need, the only way this helps the club for him leaving. So there is an argument to be made that tactically he's not a great fit for this team, right? Because if you play him in the midfield position, he's not really cut out to do that. He's not going to be press resistant in the same way, or if he does, then you lose his attacking input. He's playing further away from goal, and he's still your best assist man and your best goal scorer too. And playing him at 10, he's not exactly a pressing machine, right? So that's the argument. And so if you get 100 million, if you get some stupid amount of money for him, then maybe it helps the club if you're reinvested wisely. But I also think it's a moot point. Nobody's going to offer you an enormous fee for Bruno. And so you're going to have to make it work with Ruben Amorim. I think maybe he was saying this as a pick-me-up after the game to try to show how much he loves the club. I'll sacrifice myself, blah, blah, blah. I don't think there's anything sinister in it. Maybe trying to distract from the
I saw it in a very cynical way. And maybe it's just me. Because Bruno was so bad in this game. Maybe not just down to himself, but the tactics around him, the team around him, the players he played with. I just don't think he had the impact that he should have had. And for me, it's a way to just go back to your last point, a bit deflecting how bad he was by saying something like that we would all pick up on, obviously. And that maybe some fans will say, oh, he loves the club, so he's ready to... It's just an excuse for how bad he played.
I'm too gullible then.
I don't know. I'm sorry. I love that you've got better heart than me. That's all.
Final point on this: Heung-min Son did not get a medal after the game, but the reason he did it, I read up on this. This is interesting. So UEFA tell the teams, look, we have 50 winners medals and 50 runners up medals. You decide who gets the medal. That's how we see all those guys in like jumpsuits or the staff all coming up and they all want medals. And look, everybody's important in a team, right? Not to the same level, but
yeah, of course.
But you only get 30 medals from Chefrin. So in other words, you only get 30 medals. The other 20 dudes get their medals later, which I think is entirely reasonable because I don't
then
need
you will
to
be there forever. If everybody in the squad or in the staff overall gets one, you'll be there forever.
I'm assuming 30 seconds for him to get the medal, to put it around the neck, to shake hands and so on. If you're giving out 50 between both teams, plus the refereeing staff and whatever, you're there for an hour, right? Nobody wants that. The problem is, and the teams decide, I guess, I don't know if Spurs didn't want to jinx it by deciding, all right, these 30 guys are going up for the medal. But by the time Son went up, they had run out of medals. And you can actually see
he was the last one for the trophy, so
Chefrin looking a little bit panicked. And that's why, I mean, those of us who are watching on YouTube, you can see him behind us. Heung-min Son, the club captain, who didn't start this game, arguably should have. I know he wasn't fully fit, but whatever. The poor man does not have a medal. None of these other schlubs says, hey, Sonny, just for the picture, just a trophy lift, do you want my medal? Can you borrow it? What?
Mikey Moore has one, so it's fine.
I don't know. Who is that? Fraser Forster in the back? Did he grow a big beard?
Yeah, that's Fraser Forster.
Okay, Fraser, you're very tall. You can give him a medal.
Not sure if Fraser Forster got one. But one player, I won't say his name because, I mean, not that he would mind, but he's probably funny with that. Said to me, listen, not that I will ever win anything like that, but he said, there's 2 golden rules when you win a trophy. It's a bit like a big one, not just the Paris Cup that I won in 1994. But
the Paris Cup 1994.
Thank you very much.
If you played, I know we got a roll board. If you played against Jules in the 1994 Paris Cup, get in touch.
Please get in touch.
If you have video, give us highlights because you want to see a young Jules.
Great campaign.
Leading his team to the Paris Cup.
But that player said there's 2 golden rules here. First one, make sure you are amongst the first to go and get your medal. Unless you're the captain, but if you're not, go quickly.
Because they might run out.
And then make sure that you are close to the trophy for the photos. So Pedro Porro, Jet Spence, done so to some. But look at Van de Ven. Van de Ven should never be that far behind. He should be right up there. And that's all about tactics, where to position yourself for a trophy lift. Very important.
Where's Vic? Why isn't Vic in the picture?
Exactly.
Oh, no, that must be Vic's arm, unless there's some other dude.
No, there's
a goalkeeping kit.
But that's what I mean. You see, so very important. First one to go and get your medal, or one of the first, very close to the trophy when it's lifted. So you can be on all the photos for your mum, your nan, your aunties, your sisters, or your whole family. But very important.
When Milan won their first European Cup, Milan's chief executive, Adriano Galliani, famously took the cup up to his room with him and he slept with the club in his bed, right?
Yeah.
Do we think, where do we think the Europa League trophy spent the night? Do you think Son took it up to his room and did a live stream back to Korea?
It might be too nice, not that selfish. But usually it's the biggest guy, right? So Messi did it, Lewandowski did it. I mean, I don't know if they slept the whole night or if it was just for the photo, them in the bed with it. But I think I'll keep it in my bed, to be fair.
And by the way, I have a minor point, but it really bugs me when people finish runners up and they immediately take off their medal.
Oh yeah, you don't like that? No.
I get where it comes from, but I didn't see any United players doing it. Maybe some did. I didn't see them. So well done to them. I don't know if this is a code, something the club told them to do, but don't do that. It's really tacky. All right, enough Europa League. How about some quick hits instead?
Let's go, Gab.
Manchester City down Bournemouth 3-1 as Rodri makes his return off the bench. Jules, big win. And it's nice to see the Ballon d'Or back. Sorry, Vini. The Ballon d'Or.
Yeah, he had a massive standing ovation when he came on, but also when he went to warm up, because I think we all knew he was going to get a few minutes. So it was great to see him. He tucked the shirt in too. So it was old school. It was like vintage Rodri. It was perfect. Big win. They had to win. They were under pressure because they were out of the Champions League position at that moment with that game in hands. In control pretty much of the game, even with the Evan Nilsson post. At 1-0, KDB missing a big chance, but overall doing well. That last goal they conceded, though, really, really made me mad, simply in fantasy football mindset, because I had both Vardiol and Ederson. But anyway, really good for them, and then it's all in their own hands before the last game of the season. And this was Kevin De Bruyne's final game at the Etihad. Very emotional. He said goodbye after 10 seasons at the club. Everybody cried, even Pep. All the family was there, everything. Clearly one of the best players that we've seen in Premier League history.
No arguments there. What I love about his arc is obviously, I had to see him up close when he was at Chelsea, and obviously had a really, did not have a happy time there with the manager and whatever else. And then he goes to Germany and has a monster season. More than one monster season, in fact. And then he comes back, and there's still the skepticism. Can he cut it in the Premier League? Can he do it over here? Ooh, he failed at Chelsea. It's like the Mo Salah argument, right?
Yeah.
I'm not going to throw this up in Mourinho's face like so many people do, because that was probably part of it. I mean, maybe he decided not to bet on them on their characteristics. And look, over a long career, you're not going to get every decision right, and you got those wrong. But it's more this idea that somebody comes up short at 19, 20, 21, however old he was, and then that's it. Oh, he can't do it, right? And I love that he proved so many people wrong. Not only did he come back, he danced circles around the Premier League for a decade. And I go back to my point about also his physical fitness and stuff. I think we saw at the end of this season when Pep started playing him all the time that, hey, look, maybe he's not like, a decrepit gimp either, although he's 33 years old. My understanding is choosing between two very different places, both near water. Chicago, where it's
nice,
extremely hot and humid and unpleasant in the summer, and extremely cold and unpleasant in the winter. And Naples, where, no disrespect to Chicago, the food is
perfect.
better.
Yeah.
But yeah, his wife's been down there, checked it out. It is a big move. I think there's a lot of questions. It's not just about money.
Yeah.
It's also going to be about who the manager is going to be, and what can happen. Take your time, Kevin. Take your time. It's a big decision. Probably your final contract. Do what's right for your family, and just take your time. Multiple outlets report that Manchester City have withdrawn from the race for Florian Wirtz. Does this make sense to you, Jules?
So they don't want to spend 250 million euros over the next 5 years? No? Between the transfer fee, around 150 million euros, plus then his wages, around 20 million a year. That's a lot of money. It's a lot of money for everyone, including Manchester City, because they also want to strengthen other positions. If you put it all in the Wirtz basket, you won't have much left for the rest. So I can completely understand. As much as Pep would have loved him, I'm sure, and I would have loved to see him work with Pep. I mean, come on, it's a lot of money.
I don't think they withdrew. I think he said he would prefer to go to a different
that was not your question.
No.
Yeah.
Like, I'm being cynical here, right?
Media-wise. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that was the
we're
case.
no longer interested. It is a tremendous amount of money. City need to improve qualitatively. We said this before. How many City players are top 4 or 5 in the world at their position right now? And you might say Rodri, who's coming off the injury, obviously. You might say Haaland. You might say Gvardiol. There's not too many others.
No, yeah.
Right? So Wirtz gives you the qualitative jump. I can understand if I'm Wirtz too. I don't know what's going to happen with 115 charges. I don't know how much of my career I'm going to spend with Pep. Maybe elsewhere is going to be more appealing.
Yeah. Okay, Gab, your favorite game this season, the final Champions League spot will be decided on Sunday. So it's time to play the percentage game. Who do you go for?
That's right. City are on 68 points. They got Fulham away. Even if they lose, I think they're in. I'm going to go 99%. Newcastle, 90%. They have Everton at home, 66 points. I'm going 90%. I think they'll beat Everton. And even if they don't, they're in a strong position. Chelsea, I'm only on 60% because they have Forest away, who are also competing here. They're on 66 points. Villa, I've only gone 21%. Sorry, Unai, but the reality is you have a bad goal difference and you do not control your destiny. It depends on results elsewhere. And I'm going to give Forest 30%, more than
Villa.
Simply because of the way things match up. And by the way, Villa are away at Manchester United.
Who don't want to play that game.
Who do not want to play that game, but weird things do happen,
True.
and it's not a cup competition.
True.
So that's how it shakes out for me. Cristiano Ronaldo missed a penalty and then scored a penalty in the 7th minute of injury time as Al Nassr beat Al Khalij 2-0. Why are we telling you this? Well, partly because it's Cristiano and it's good for traffic.
Of course.
But also he's 65 goals away from that 1,000 mark that is now a thing.
Of course.
And to be fair, it was a thing for Pelé back in the day. Why should it not be a thing for Cristiano?
Absolutely. He's getting closer. Yeah. Will he get it? I mean, probably 18 months, 2 seasons. It's just a question of where he will play next season, by the way, because he hasn't renewed his contract with Al Nassr yet. He's out of contract. Could he stay in Saudi? Right now, Al Nassr are not going to be in the Champions League next season.
He's got to sign with somebody for the Club World Cup. I think 1,000% he's going to sign with somebody for the Club World Cup. Play in the Club World Cup.
That is so weird.
Why?
What club would do that? So what? So you are a club?
Well, a lot of clubs are going to do that. A lot of clubs are taking. You can take people on loan for a month, right?
Like people you don't know, you've never played with, your players have never played with, and then you bring them in.
It's less unusual, especially for South American teams and Mexican teams to do this.
Okay, I don't know.
But if it's Cristiano, wouldn't you do it?
I don't know.
Think of the money, Jules.
Yeah, maybe. But
and you know Cristiano would come, right? He can come. Then he takes 2 months off, prepares for next season.
Yeah, maybe. I was more talking about next season. I don't really mind so much what he does for the Club World Cup or not. But for next season, do you stay in Saudi? But what if Al Nassr don't play in the Champions League? Do you try to go to another league? I don't know. It's a bit up in the air. I didn't expect it to be without a contract almost at that time. I thought he would have sorted his future by now. So I don't know.
He could. I still think you should take a pay cut. Go play for Inter Miami go play for Inter Miami in the Club World Cup for free, just for a month, so you can say Messi and Cristiano together on the same team.
Yeah, I'm sure they dream of that. Pepe Reina has announced his retirement from football. Gab, you love him.
I do. He is such a good person. He's a class act. He's a great pro. In some ways, he was also, he didn't get the attention that other goalkeepers get in terms of his ability to play out from the back, because many of the teams that he played for tended not to do that. But when they did, he was phenomenal. I think he's somebody that could comfortably play. Could have probably played in defensive midfield in the second division in many European leagues. Always prepared, great pro, 42 years old. He's at Como. I'm assuming we're going to see him Friday night when Como played in his last game. Maybe not. But it just tells you people always wanted him around. And, Barcelona, Liverpool, Milan, Lazio, Aston Villa on loan, if you remember that. Napoli, played for so many great clubs.
Great career.
I hope he finds a way to stay involved in the game, because he's one of the good guys.
Yeah.
All right, we're not done. We have more quick hits.
Yes.
Endrick is out of the Club World Cup for Real Madrid. Jules, this was supposed to be a showcase for him.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all expect a lot of rotation with all those teams that are in the Club World Cup, and maybe players who don't play much during the season will play. And that would have been the case for him. Is another injury to Carlo Ancelotti. Well, Carlo Ancelotti, not so much. To Real Madrid and...
No, to Carlo Ancelotti, the Brazil coach too.
Yeah, the Brazil coach too. Right, absolutely. And Jude Bellingham as well, who will have surgery. So it'd be maybe a very different Real Madrid squad that will travel to the US. 5 Valladolid fans were found guilty of racially abusing Vinicius Jr. back in 2022 have been criminally sentenced to a year in prison and fined, Gab.
Yeah, and look, I'm a believer in holding individuals responsible. Yes, in the moment, you have to punish the whole club, and you can close stands and whatever from a sporting perspective.
Yeah.
But most of all, you have to find these individuals. My understanding is that these guys were identified. They were banned by Valladolid, and that takes care of the sporting part. But if this is classed as a hate crime in law, then they have to be punished. And I don't care that it took 3 years. It's there. They're not active. Instead, it's a year in prison. They're not actually going to go to prison, because it's going to be suspended. Most nonviolent crimes in Spain are suspended if the sentence is less than 2 years. But if they commit another infraction, they're going straight to prison. Simple as. Hansi Flick has extended his contract at Barcelona through 2027. Jules, no-brainer? A whole extra year.
Yeah, it's just a year. That's the thing. So it's not too much commitment from Laporta and the club either.
They can't afford too much commitment. That's
exactly.
always their
And
excuse.
I'm not sure Hansi Flick would want too much commitment either. That next season might be enough. They win the treble, and after they said, I had 2 great years here, I want to do something else. So I think this works for everyone. And it's a bit of a reward for what a good season he's had and how much he's transformed this team.
Can I say something? This whole thing about, managers need 3-year deals, 4-year deals, 5-year deals to stamp their authority, blah, blah, blah. It's just nonsense. Just stupid agent speak. Clubs, don't be fooled by managers. There's a lot more managers out there than there are clubs. You have the leverage. Make the guys fall into line.
Friday night, the Serie A title will be decided unless it goes to a playoff the following week. But Gab, how are Napoli and Inter looking?
It's highly unlikely to go to a playoff, because it would mean that it would require Napoli losing at home to Cagliari and Inter drawing away to Como. Napoli do have some injury worries. David Neres. It doesn't look like he's going to start. It looks like he's going to go with Raspadori. He's not fully fit, but I'm sure he'll come on at some point. Juan Jesus could be back at the back, which was important because Oliveira's not really center half. For Inter, of course, they have that small game against Paris Saint-Germain coming up. So got to look at that too. Looks like Lautaro, he may be on the bench. He may not even be in the squad for this game. Bastoni, also probably out, not fully fit, and Benjamin Pavard as well. Of course, it's been an ongoing thing. It's going to be weird deciding a title on a Friday night, but I'm excited. Those two games obviously
we'll be watching
off at the same
sure.
time. Napoli simply need to equal or better Inter's result. Simple as that. Pep Guardiola says he doesn't want a big squad. Jules, so much for the conventional wisdom that you need depth to compete if you're going deep in all competitions and stuff like that.
I mean, there's just a balance to find between having too many players and having to leave 5 or 6 in the stands, which is what Pep was referring to. He said, I don't want to have to tell players that they have to go and sit in the stand and not be on the bench or not be on the pitch, which I completely understand. And maybe this is a reflection, not just at Man City, but for UEFA and for FIFA to have some sort of limitation in squad numbers. I don't know. But then for Pep to say that after they signed 4 players for £180 million in January, I'm like, come on, you're not helping yourself either here.
No, he's not helping himself either because, first of all, the bigger squad, part of the reason it exists is so that you don't have to have players play every minute of every game all the time.
And prevent injuries, yeah.
And to cut down on injuries, to manage a squad. Pep very rarely uses all 5 substitutions. Most of the time, he just makes a couple. But if this is the way he wants to do it, that's fine. But, it is something to think about. It's something for Manchester City, I think, to think about as well. Is this the right way forward when we want to go deep in every competition and we don't want our big guns to get injured?
Plenty for Milan to worry about. Pulisic's contract stalls. There's still no sporting director or coach at this moment in time. And the fans are on the warpath ahead of the final home game against Monza.
That's right. There's going to be a protest against Monza. They're very, very angry at Conceição, who will obviously not be there because Clever Clogs got suspended. I don't even know if he's going to be in the stadium. Honestly, if I was him, maybe
he's just stay at home.
Just go away.
It's already in Portugal.
They're very angry at the ownership, Jerry Cardinale, I think first and foremost. The Pulisic stuff. Sorry. I mean, it was sporting director. It looks like it's going to be Iglitare. Supposedly, it's been agreed. Although we've heard this before.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I thought that was agreed in January.
Yeah, supposedly that's going to be signed next week. The coach will follow after that. Vincenzo Italiano is the latest name to be brought forward. I am slightly skeptical that he's a decent fit. From Pulisic's perspective, he has 2 years left. So obviously you want to extend. But equally, if I'm Pulisic, I say, well, wait a minute. I should find out at least who's going to coach me next year, who I'm going to interface with as sporting director. I'm in no rush. I don't need to be doing this now.
Too right.
This was way back on Monday, but Brighton beat Liverpool 3-2. Nothing to play for, but a fun watch nonetheless.
Absolutely, Gab. You're right. I mean, we saw one of the misses of the season from Mo Salah, which even Stevie Nicol on the FC show that night could not really comprehend how that happened. But it was a great game, and well done to Fabian Hutzler.
We didn't mention this earlier, speaking of misses.
Yeah,
Kevin De Bruyne also had.
Well, yeah.
Is there some cosmic significance that 2 of the greatest players in Premier League history both have tremendous misses
and very similar ones
too?
That was fun. Well done to Hutzler, Brighton, amazing at home. Another big team that goes there and loses points or drop points. And the suspense was there. Everything was there. It was great. And I think this bodes well for Liverpool. They were in Ibiza and Dubai 2 days before.
Of course.
I think Tsimikas had a Chinese the night before the game and he started that. So, but for Brighton, this is good. This bodes well for next season. Carlo Ancelotti is on his way to take over the Brazil job, but the guy who hired him, Gab, is on his way out.
That's right. Oginaldo Rodriguez, who's been kind of following him and trying to sign him since 2023. If you remember, there was a dispute. He had to step down. They submitted a petition signed by a bunch of judges. Some people are accused. They're saying that one of those judges' signatures was forged. Now, if you believe you're in the right, I would think you would appeal to the Supreme Court in Brazil and keep your job. He's decided not to appeal. Okay. Make it that way you want. Somebody named Samir Shoud, who apparently is the only candidate. Funny, nobody wants to be Brazilian FA president, is likely to take over on Sunday. not the greatest environment to go into if you're Ancelotti.
Yeah.
The Times report that Phil Foden has asked to be left out of England's upcoming internationals. He says he needs a rest, especially mentally.
You know what, Phil? You wouldn't have been picked anyway by Thomas Tuchel for this international. He's hardly played. Why would you pick on what ground would you pick him?
There's going to be a lot of pullouts and stuff.
I don't know, but if I was Tuchel, I would not have picked Foden. I would have said to Foden, you know what? Go on holidays. Don't worry about the international break. Get ready for the Club World Cup with your club after that and have a bit of a break. So, Phil, you didn't need to say anything. Don't worry. I think Tuchel had that covered anyway.
Is that why you haven't ruled yourself out from the France squad?
Yeah, exactly the same. FIFA are going to use dynamic pricing at the World Cup, Gabby. Can you explain for some people who don't know what it is?
Yeah, so this is actually pretty commonplace in the US. It's a bit like, when you go on an airplane, right? We might sit next to each other, but you might have paid $300 and I might have paid $99. The idea is prices fluctuate and change based on demand. They nerds write up an algorithm.
Yeah.
This is pretty customary for tickets in the US. They're doing it already for the Club World Cup. They'll do it for the World Cup. However, they're only doing this for neutral tickets or kind of third-party tickets. So if at a World Cup, a big chunk of the fans get the tickets via their national federation. Yeah. And so those prices will be fixed. They buy them in advance. You can get different types of packages and whatnot. The funny thing with the dynamic pricing, which you see it a lot in concerts, it's coming to concerts in other parts of the world a little bit, is that prices can go up or they can go down. And what we've seen for the Club World Cup is that in several cases, for several matches, prices have actually gone down.
That means not enough people wanted to buy some. Is that okay?
Exactly? Elsewhere, it becomes like an auction. Again, the argument is it's going to be mostly US-based fans buying this. Presumably, they're accustomed to it, and sporting events in the US are much more expensive than they are in other parts of the world. Crystal Palace beat Wolverhampton Wanderers on Tuesday. Talk about a team on the beach, by the way. Wolverhampton Wanderers. Vitor Pereira, you were fantastic. You should be among. I don't give one manager of the year. I give multiple managers of the year. Vitor Pereira is getting one of them. Iraola is getting one of them. Slot's getting one of them. Yeah. Might have to reluctantly give one to
Nuno. You have to give one to Nuno.
I have to give one to Nuno. Yeah. Might have to reluctantly give one to Eddie Howe as well. Frankly. Anyway, Eddie Nketiah scores twice. Jules, another chance to praise the FA Cup winners. Because I'm assuming that the party of a lifetime Sunday night.
Yeah, I think they're still partying now, to be fair. Rotation from Glasner, and rightly so. Some players on the bench like Eze or Mateta, and players like Nketiah starting, scoring twice. Great party at Selhurst Park for the last home game of the season with the FA Cup trophy, of course. Incredible atmosphere there. They won. It was a great game, open with loads of chances. And it was just a perfect farewell to this incredible season that forever will stay in Crystal Palace history. So well done to everybody. And if we stick with Palace, Gabby, we have a John Texter tale. Do your thing.
It's time! It's time! It's Texter time! That's right. So Lyon will qualify for European football, for the Europa League, if Stade Reims do not beat Paris Saint-Germain.
So they already qualified, but for the qualifiers now, if PSG win, they go straight into the Europa League.
Right. So that creates a situation where you've got two teams. The rules say you have a controlling stake in more than one team. Or significant stake, I should say. Obviously, he owns Lyon outright. He owns, I thought it was 45%. Apparently, it's 43%. He must have lost some percentage points along the way of Crystal Palace. So he's supposed to put, if he does that, he has to put one of those two teams into a blind trust, which means
what Marinakis has done, for example.
What Mr. Marinakis has done, what Ratcliffe has done. All our favorite owners do this. Yeah. The problem is, if he puts Crystal Palace into a blind trust, he's trying to IPO his Eagle Football Group consortium, and he's not involved in Palace, or it's in a blind trust. It's being run by other people. That makes the IPO more difficult because it makes it less valuable.
The value less. Yeah.
If he puts Lyon into a blind trust, it's the same thing. On top of that, of course, Lyon, this whole thing could not even go away, because I don't know if Lyon could still play in the Europa League if they get relegated. I'm assuming they could.
Yeah, they could, unless UEFA, who have also threatened to not allow them to play in Europe next season.
So he needs to go. So the latest, the suggestion is that what he's going to do is he's going to argue is like, yes, I do own 43% of Crystal Palace, or 45%, whatever it is. I was going to sell it. I'm not going to sell it now. But it doesn't matter because I'm not really in charge there because
As we know.
because I only have 25% of the votes, and Parrish, Harris, and Blitzer each have 25%. And if it's a tie, in the unlikely event that Harris or Blitzer decide to break up with each other and side with me and it was 50-50, then Parrish gets the deciding vote anyway, based on the statute. So I don't really matter at all at Crystal Palace. But of course, if you come out and you say that as your argument, then why am I buying Eagle football
Absolutely.
when these shares in Palace are kind of worthless? So I know it sounds boring and complicated financial, but it's a real pickle. The only fun thing about this, looking ahead to the French Cup final, is I'm assuming he's going to be Paris Saint-Germain fan for the day.
It has to be. I mean, remember Nasser, he was at the Parc des Princes for the second leg against Arsenal when Nasser invited him. So we see. And they will be in front of the DNCG on June 24th. And they will have to have their account sorted. I think they need 175 million euros to find somewhere between money coming from somewhere, the transfer that they will make of Cherki and Fofana and maybe others, Tolisso, right. I don't know who. But that 24th of June, this is where it could all be decided whether they play in Ligue 1 or Ligue 2.
How much do they need to raise?
I think I was told 175 million. That seems a lot. So
all right. So you sell Ryan Cherki for 100 million. Tolisso, you're not going to get much for. Fofana, maybe another 30 million. And then because Alexandre Lacazette was earning 50 million a year, and because his contract is up on June 30th, you're set. You're a genius, JT. You did it.
You cracked it.
Your buddy Will Still is heavily linked to the Southampton job.
Yes, I think he will get it, Gab. I think it's a very interesting decision from him, choice from Southampton. He wanted a project in England. He wanted to come back here. His girlfriend, who we know well, Emma Saunders, hasn't been very well the last few weeks and months, so he wanted to come back to England to be close to her. Which is
it a case of coming back? Because he never actually lived here, has he?
A little bit. So yeah, I mean, coming.
He wanted to come here.
Yeah, it's come to England.
It's easier, better for her care.
Yeah, exactly, absolutely, and that's why with 2 years left on his contract at Lens, he told the club that he was leaving, and I suspect to go back to the compensation for Amorim. This is a different case, but obviously he left his position. And Southampton, he lacks the project. He lacks the academy, the young players. I think he thinks they have enough to go straight back up to the Premier League. So I think it's a great appointment if this happened from a Southampton point of view.
Again, for those who don't know who he is, he's the very ginger-looking guy who is English, but grew up football-wise.
Half Belgium, half
France.
English. Yeah.
He's half Belgian, but football-wise, he grew up in Belgium and France.
Yeah.
And he kind of came out of nowhere at a very young age.
Yeah, he's 32 now.
Was it at Reims, right?
Yeah, so he was in Belgium before, then assistant coach at Reims, and then number one at Reims, and then Lens. But yeah, it was a really good season from him, considering the circumstances. So good luck to him in England. Liverpool will unveil a new Heysel memorial. Gab, why is this significant?
I think it's significant because it's the 40th anniversary of the Heysel tragedy, where 39 people died, and for a long time, I think quite shamefully, I'd say between 1985 and maybe 2000, both these clubs wanted to forget that it happened.
Yeah,
I think Juventus were embarrassed with the way they celebrated on the pitch their first ever European Cup when there's 39 dead bodies. Liverpool, I remember reading on the Liverpool website at the time. There was a little something kind of commemorating it. And it was it was a terrible night. 39 people died because there was fighting between the fans and the wall collapsed. As if it's like the fault of the wall that there was fight. And that's not what happened.
Yeah.
And Liverpool took ownership of it, very famously in the 20th anniversary, I think it was, in 2005. They unleashed a new plaque. Juventus as a club embraced it and took ownership, and rather than pretending that it didn't happen, they, to their credit, said, we need to go, we need to work with the families and stuff. And it's been 40 years on, and I think this shows a sign of maturity, a sign of ownership. It's not like Liverpool are saying, well, that was 20 years ago. None of us owned the club at the time. None of us were involved with it. Ian Rush and Billy Hogan, the CEO, are going to unveil this plaque. And they said this lives on because for all its ugliness and the long-reaching impact, this is part of Liverpool's history too. And so I think it's a real credit to the club. Ryan Cherky has been called up by France for the upcoming internationals. Okay, Jules, is this when I have to stop saying that he's going to turn out for Italy?
Well, no, you can still say, Gabi.
Why hasn't Spalletti called him up?
Well, one maybe because he doesn't have a passport. So it's difficult to play for a country and represent a country when you don't have a passport.
Get one.
You can get one. I'm not sure how quick you can between the announcement of the squads and the first game. But I think he could have also picked Algeria or Italy, as you said. I think he wanted to play for France. Deschamps said he could have called him up in March. Instead, it was Doué, and he didn't feel there was enough room for both. This time there is, incredible season from Ryan Cherky at 21 years old, 12 goals, 20 assists in all competitions in 44 games. The best season of his life, in the form of his life. And this is a well-deserved call-up. I don't know how much he will play because obviously it's the Nations League semi-final against Spain. It's a big, big game. I don't think he will start, but it's great to have him in the squad because I think he can change the game at any moment as a super sub, as a starter. I think depending on what happened in the semi-final and whether they play the final or not, he might have more game time in the second game. But yeah, that's great news, I think.
Ryan, I know I might appeal to you. I know you obviously do not feel Italian. You're much closer to France and Algeria. Rightly so. But come on, man. Be selfish. Think about yourself. If you go play for France, you got to deal with Barcola and Doué and the Kylian Mbappe guy who I'm told is pretty good.
Yeah, Olise.
Michael freaking
I think
Olise.
he's the replacement, the number 2 behind Olise to play in that 10 position, I think.
And what if Griezmann comes back? Like they just have so many players.
Platini.
You mentioned Dembele.
Zidane.
Platini.
Yeah.
I mean, you go to Italy, honestly, you walk into the side. Your competition is Orsolini, for crying out loud. I mean, I know Orsolini, great player, scored maybe a goal this season in Europe this year.
Lovely scissor kick.
Seriously, man. Like, honestly, we're open to it. We took Mauro Camoranesi after all.
He might not play at all in the next 2 games, so he will still be available. Because call-up doesn't count. He has to play.
Okay, but Deschamps would have to be a real something that rhymes with trick to call him up.
But but I'm still saying, like, why if he picks up an injury?
There's still time, Ryan.
There's still time.
Honestly, and if you don't come to Italy because you don't like the food, look, you're close enough to France that you can still get French food. And there's enough Algerian immigrants in Italy. There's some very good Algerian restaurants.
Yeah.
So you can tick that box too.
Absolutely.
Come on, just please.
And it'd be so easy for you, Ryan, to communicate with your new friends and teammates and coach. Because I'm sure loads of people speak French in that Italian squad.
Donnarumma can translate for you. I'm sure he's picked up from French.
Yeah, it's true.
So come on.
Leicester City could face a points deduction in the Championship next season after an independent panel ruled against them.
This is another one of the situations, my thoughts on lawyers. This is so stupid. So they went far beyond financial stability rules, profit sustainability rules. And then they argued, oh, no, you can't count this because you're the Premier League. And we were, when they were promoted last time, and we were in the Championship because it hadn't occurred to them when they drew up these rules. Hey, what if we make a unified rule since the EFL has its own? Yeah. So thankfully now they have made, and I say this thankfully, not because I want to see Leicester City punished, but because I want to see rational rules.
Yeah.
You broke the rules. This was, some little loophole you were trying to exploit. You have a CEO, you have an owner, you have a bunch of accountant nerds who can go through and tell you, like, oh, do we want to gamble on this loophole? Is this a good idea? No, and now face the consequences. Yeah. And if they do get a points penalty, they're going to have to serve the penalty in the Championship, which I think is very relevant because that means it's not a given that they're going to come straight back up. The police will investigate after Dominic Calvert-Lewin's wife was abused online after praising her husband, of course, who's leaving Everton after a long career there, out of contract.
Yeah.
In principle, Jules, there's a lot of instances of online abuse. Is this something police should be investigating?
I think we have to be very strong on this and tough on this. And I know police have probably other things to do too. I'm not saying this is more important than other crimes or less important, but this has been going on for too long, not just for the Calvert-Lewin family, but for a lot of players involved, their families. I saw the Formula One driver, Jack Doohan, the Australian guy, whose family and wife also got massive abuse online after he was dropped from the Red Bull car and the Red Bull team. I'm like, come on, like this has to stop now. So if to stop, the police have to do something, then I'm all for it.
So there's a very simple deterrent to this, and which I really, which is when you register for these social media accounts, you have to use your real identity, right? I mean, Facebook managed to do it. And I don't think it's hurt Facebook over the years, or Meta as it is now known. And whenever I bring this up, people come up with, oh no, because in undemocratic states, Twitter can be used. And they mention the Arab Spring in Egypt, people were collecting on Twitter and had to use their real identities. The state could have cracked on them. You know what? That's not the case in Western Europe. So I don't need you to be anonymous on Twitter. Not to mention the fact that there are, or X, sorry, Elon. I mentioned the fact that there's many other messaging paths. There's many other ways for people to organize anonymously.
Yeah, true.
Whether it's Signal, whether it's Telegram. So that's such a stupid excuse. And yeah, if X don't want to do it nationally, fine. But if you're going to register from Europe, from the UK, from whatever countries, you can pass laws and say you have to have your verified identity. And I think that would cut out a lot of abuse very, very quickly.
Todd Brady speaks again, Gab, and he chose the Qatar Economic Forum in Doha to do it, which is entirely normal.
Yeah, normal like him.
Absolutely normal like him. He complained about fixture congestion and revealed the secret to sporting success, because obviously he had a lot of sporting success.
No, he read a book, which I'll get to in a minute. So first of all, I like it when these people talk and are held accountable. But going up on a stage, he only talks. He never gives a press conference or anything.
Yeah, it's only in those conferences and stuff.
Yeah, so
Forums.
Let me go to Doha and go talk, in front of some show. It's pretty ridiculous, frankly. But now, is he not talking because he's on his way out of the club? Because obviously, I think they've even admitted it that he and Bali don't see eye to eye, and he's a minority owner. But whatever. But he complains that the calendar in football is tight and the injuries continue to go up, and she says, we're gonna have to revisit what the calendar looks like and how much football they can actually play. Now, is he using the royal we, as in like FIFA and FIFA and stuff like that?
Like if he was in charge.
Very simple. Why not? Next time the proposal to have an 18-team Premier League comes up, why don't you go and vote in favor of an 18-team Premier League? Whenever it's a proposal to scrap the League Cup, why don't you vote to scrap the League Cup?
Yeah.
There are solutions to this other than this airy-fairy too much football. The other thing that was interesting is he says, we think we've got one of the best young teams. And that's fine. So far, you're back.
That's fair.
He says, we were very early with those 7, 8, 9-year contracts. Now, when you say that, this suggests to me that everybody's now doing 7, 8, 9-year contracts. They're not. It's just you. It's really just you. This is not something that's now been proven to be, and everybody's doing it like it's something you invented. No, yeah, you were the first to do it. Remains to be seen.
You're the only one still to do it.
How good an idea this is. But he said the priority, and I think this is interesting, they wanted to make sure that they could keep the team together for a long time. Then he brings up, if you read a book called Captain Class, it talks about the 15 best teams in the world, and that in order to have a really good team, you need stability within the team. Now, Captain Class is a book written by my old boss at the Wall Street Journal, Sam Walker. Sam is a wonderful guy. It's an interesting book. What he did was he looked at 15 of the most successful sports teams in history, regardless of sport, and he tried to look for commonalities. And stability was one of those commonalities.
Yeah.
For some reason, all these CEOs, companies, they all read the book, and they're like, oh my God, that's brilliant. Never occurred to us that if we have the same people in charge for a long time, it might be successful. It obviously also hasn't occurred to them that if you have a team that's successful and wins one year, probably if those players are going to want to stay together and come back and win again a second year. And if they're good players, they'll win again, and then they'll win again, right? People tend not to want to leave successful teams, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
It's not like Thomas Muller left Bayern Munich after they win 10 in a row. Yeah, this is enough, right? So people might say, it's a self-fulfilling. Otherwise, if you put a bunch of bad players together, like all those long-term contracts Manchester United signed, like, for Lindelof, McTominay, whatever, and that didn't work out. Anyway, I just want to give a shout out to Sam Walker, Captain Class. I don't agree with some of the conclusions in the book, and I don't agree with some of the conclusions that a lot of these CEO types draw, but Sam's turned it into a consultancy about success, about winning. Well done to him. It is a very entertaining book. And there, I've plugged my old boss's book, which, by the way, came out like 10 years ago. I guess Bully, maybe he's got more time to catch up with his reading.
Maybe it's a bit late.
We won't see Wendy Renard and Eugénie Le Sommet at the Women's Euros, Jules. This is supposed to be the last dance.
Yeah, it was, Gabby. It was. I didn't see this one coming. I don't think anybody in France in the media saw that coming. For us who follow the women's national team, I don't think Renard and Le Sommer saw it coming either. They were in the squad for the last international break, and this time they are not going to be for the next two in the Nations League, and obviously not then for the Euros. Laurent Bonadei making that decision, because it's been leaked to us, so he hasn't come out yet and confirmed it or talked about it. So we will ask him the question.
I hope it's been leaked to them first.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
I think they probably found out in the press. That's why I gathered last night. Is Jenny Le Sommer good enough anymore to play for France as a starter? Probably not. No, because she's 36 and she hasn't played much for Lyon this season anyway.
She's younger than Chesney.
That's true, but still, she started like her career
Right.
at international level when she was like 15 or something, like 20 years ago, or something ridiculous like that. For Renard, however, I think this is more surprising because she's a starter in what is the best team in France and the third or fourth best team in Europe this season, and she's younger, and she's the national team captain, and she's the most experienced, the most respected figure in that dressing room. So that's a huge call, more Renard than Le Sommer really, from Bonadei, and one that could easily like come back to haunt him, I think. So
If the leak didn't come from them, if it came, because I mean, I don't want anybody to reveal their sources, but situations like this, I would expect if the coach is going to drop two players like that, especially Wendy Renard, as you said, I would expect him to call Renard and then Renard's people leak it. But if the leak comes from somewhere else, he could still come around and say, no, it's not true.
yeah, maybe
That's why I
there's
haven't called
a
them.
twist. Yeah, maybe there's a twist.
They
Although
found
I
out from the
doubt
media
it.
reports. I don't know.
I would find that surprising, but yeah, maybe we'll have to wait and see the announcement of the squad, which is I think today or tomorrow. Blackburn Rovers have withdrawn from the second flight of the Women's Super League here in England. Gab, what does this tell you?
It tells me that the model is broken. That you cannot, if you wanted to have professional women's football, you cannot simply go and copy the English or any kind of men's pyramid and say, oh yeah, let's go and do the same thing. You can't do that. There's a different